Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me once again this week, Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on?
What's going on is today we're going to be talking about your Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty thoughts, because you've been hopping back into that game. You also watched the new animated series on Netflix, Castlevania Nocturne.
Mm-hmm.
And I have just been playing more Baldur's Gate 3, but I did finish my Dark Urge playthrough, so I will share some probably spoilery thoughts on that. So we'll kind of have that as the wrap up, as like a little addendum to our Baldur's Gate 3 spoiler cast from a ways back. Enjoy all of that. A little bit of housekeeping. First, though, if you like what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. If you want to join us on That the Plus show this week, Cameron and I will be doing Ahsoka's kind of like first season here. And then the rest of October will be spooky Halloween themed stuff with Return to Halloween Town. We've finally made it there. And probably the Haunted Mansion from this year, as well as at least one other thing. So stay tuned for all of that. But yeah, let's dive in first. Cam, hit me with your Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty thoughts. This is the thing that has pulled you away from Starfield. What are your thoughts here on Cyberpunk 2077 in the year 2023? Has it recovered?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's definitely recovered. I think it recovered with its, I think it was 1.7 was the patch. Really ever since the 1.5 to like what it's now at a 2.0 patch. Whatever was kind of like the big issues with the game.
I remember like the 1.5 being like, okay, the game works now.
Yeah, basically the game works as intended. There's a lot few, like there were like bugs are minuscule compared to the level that they were at when the game launched.
Yeah.
It's to the point where people are kind of upset because this is the last DLC, last updates they're doing for the game. And some people are frustrated because they're like, the game works great now. Now you're stopping?
Yeah. So you're saying you should have just waited 3 more years to release the game. Cool.
Yeah.
Good to know.
I will say that I'm a big fan of a lot of the stuff that they've added over the years. I've kind of like played each major update as it's kind of gone along. And we are at a point now where I think the game's very good. And I was a fan of the game when it first came out. I thought that it had a lot to...
I mean, you and I both, I think, were a little underwhelmed by it. Like, ultimately, it was a fine game, but
yeah.
It was an underwhelming game, especially in terms of like what it was doing with Cyberpunk.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
It very like played it safe. In a lot
oh
of
yeah,
ways.
no, that's the thing. I like the game. It still is. I think this Phantom Liberty, the DLC that came out, is the first time it's actually taking a big major swing at a bigger cyberpunk like focus, and it's talking about kind of cyberpunk politics, like, and more like the idea of, so for a bit of backstory, in the cyberpunk universe by 2077, there was a war called the Unification War, where the new United States of America, NUSA, or NUSA, basically was trying to regroup the United States back to a singular nation. And it made its way all the way out to California, where it never fully incorporated Night City. It's one of the things. Night City was never conquered in the Unification War, and so Night City kind of exists as a city-state, almost. It doesn't have loyalty to any government, but because of the corporate interests that control Night City, Militech being essentially a government contractor for the NUSA, the U.S. has a massive influence. The NUSA has massive influence in Night City anyway. This kind of kicks off and starts off with basically like it's taken some of the best pieces from like Escape from New York, taken some stuff from some like other like cyberpunk stories when it comes to like the ideas of like what happens with espionage and spying in a cyberpunk universe. And because of that, they're going with that angle. Essentially, Idris Elba stars as Solomon Reed, who is a spy, like a super spy in the cyberpunk universe. And he's kind of like your big main point of contact and getting to him, and then kind of how it evolves from there as you kind of like deal with the kind of ramifications of essentially Dogtown. Dogtown exists outside of, like Pacifica, it exists outside of Night City proper. Pacifica was supposed to be like an expansion for billionaires and stuff like that, for it to be like a commercial center basically, but it never was finished and was cut off from funding, and now it's where the the Voodoo Boys and the Animals fight for turf in Cyberpunk Vanilla. They've added an extra section in the DLC called Dogtown, which is controlled by under a military dictatorship under a former NUSA commander who essentially tried to invade Night City, couldn't get into the city proper, and when the NUSA signed a ceasefire with Night City officials, they decided instead of retreating, they dug in and basically created a military dictatorship in a dilapidated ghetto, basically. And that's where the Phantom Liberty DLC takes place, is in Dogtown. I compare it a lot to like Kowloon from as a kind of a shadow city to Hong Kong, from if anybody remembers in the 90s, throughout the 1900s, Kowloon was a city basically made out of garbage and trash, and in between Hong Kong and mainland China, neither the British nor the Chinese acknowledged who controlled this patch of land. And so criminals and outlaws built up this city called Kowloon. It was a phantom city, essentially. And that's essentially what Dogtown is. So you're basically going through some politics stuff happens. I don't want to spoil anything, but from the stuff they announced and everything, it has to do with saving the president. And so there's a lot of going on there with that. I think it's really, really good. I don't know how far into it I am. I would say I'm feeling 2/3 of the way through it. A lot has happened. I've been in a lot of really cool fights, a lot of really cool situations that are very different than vanilla Cyberpunk. That what you get in the base game of Cyberpunk, this DLC is really doing for what I think a lot of the Witcher 3 major DLC did for Witcher 3, giving you a very different kind of experience with that same world and engine. And I think it's doing a really great job of that. It's to the point where it's really sad that this is the only one we're really getting. Because I feel like they finally get what they need to be saying and what Cyberpunk needs to be doing as a genre. And it's kind of just being left after this. And it really sucks.
Until they come up with a Cyberpunk 2078 or something.
Sure, I would dig it. There's a lot going on. They also added a new ending that I haven't gotten to yet, obviously. I haven't finished the DLC yet, but apparently completing the DLC, potentially how you finish it, unlocks a new ending for V that you have as an option. So I'm excited to see what that entails. I look forward to that. I've played through every ending. I haven't played through every ending. I know every ending. I have completed the hardest ending in the game to get to do it my way.
Ending.
The quote unquote good ending.
Yeah.
To the one I restarted the entire game in order to do because I accidentally locked myself out of it.
Yeah, because you didn't have that one conversation 10 hours before the end game or whatever.
Yeah.
That go the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I almost did. It was just I chose a different option than the actual correct option at the very end of that conversation. So it was just major BS. And I hated it, but I went back and I replayed the entire game and got the ending that I wanted. And I'm really happy with it. I still think that's probably going to end up being the best ending. I don't know how you're going to top that ending. It's one of the best endings in any video game.
The closest I ever got to I played a ton of Cyberpunk at launch, beat it. I don't remember which ending I got. I remember being up in space at one point. When I think patch 1.5 came out, I started a 1.5 / it finally came to current generation stuff. I finally booted up my PS5 copy that I'd had. I bought the PS4 version because it was going to have the free upgrade. So I booted that up and started a nomad run and got, I don't know, halfway through Act 1 maybe, before other things started coming out that I was like, I'm gonna go and play those other games rather than like revisit this old one. I did in my Nomad run. I got to see Alana Pierce's character, which was like a thing that I'd been locked out of in my original Corpo run. But yeah, I was like, the game wasn't like it hadn't. It was more stable, sure, but like, and I think even then they'd probably already tweaked and like reconfigured how some of the stuff was really was like doled out. But
Yeah.
I was very much like I'm kind of going by the numbers, and this is just a game to play while I'm waiting for other things. And like even this coming out, I have little intention of playing it, but during like one of the nights this week where I was getting like some annoying crashes on my PS5 Baldur's Gate playthrough, I was like, all right, well, I've crashed like 2 or 3 times there, so let me go ahead and boot up my Xbox and start downloading Cyberpunk, because I have I bought the collector's edition Xbox Series One X, right? Is that what they were? I don't know.
Yeah.
I've forgotten what the Xbox One X. That's what it was. I bought like the collector's edition for that. So like my copy of the game on Xbox includes that, even though I can't actually play it on that console because they made it current gen only. But I have the thing, so I started downloading it. So it's on my Xbox now if I did, run into more crashes and wanted to go back to that. But instead, I finished my Dark Urge playthrough and then immediately have started and have been going through my Tactician mode run, because I'm going to get the Platinum by the end of this year.
There you go, man. I'm super proud of you. You have really delved deep into this game, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like, man, there's so much about like the lore of the Cyberpunk universe that they're really embracing and engaging, and that helps flesh out Night City as a bigger world, which was one of already the best things. Like this massive cityscape that was a playground that you got to run around in was a benefit of the original game. It's even better now than it's ever been. Dogtown is a wonderful addition that brings a lot of something different that you really just didn't get. I'd say the best way to compare it is if you combined it's weird. It's its own unique part of the world. It's not even like if you combine different parts of it. It has its own identity distinct from other parts.
Mm-hmm.
It's really brilliantly built, and you can tell they really spent their time doing it to the point where they're like, hey, it's actually probably a little tough to drive regular cars through here. So one of the first things that happens is you unlock a free vehicle that is to a European standard, is what the joke is. It's a thinner car.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a truck, and it's like, yeah, there you go. And it's
I mostly always just stayed on
motorcycles.
Yeah, the motorcycle.
The motorcycles are still the best part, man.
From what's his butt at the beginning.
Jackie's
motorcycle.
Eric, yeah.
So I know Idris Elba was obviously like the big kind of showcase new addition to Phantom Liberty. Is Keanu Reeves also back, and there's just a whole bunch of new new stuff from Johnny Silverhands too?
Yep.
Okay.
And you actually get more from Johnny it's funny, Johnny the rocker boy that you like, the jaded broken rocker boy that you encounter. By this point, you get a bit deeper into what made Johnny that jaded rocker boy, because by engaging with the NUSA and kind of becoming like working your way through as part of a bigger political scheme, Johnny gets a bit of like, wait, instead of being like making just vague digs, there's a point where he is trying to like impart like, hey, don't do, like, you should understand, like, I know what I'm talking about when I say these people are full of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And like you're being played. Yeah. It's much less of a like, F this, F that, kind of like that you got from the vanilla game, and more of a, you are being part of a bigger game now, and you got to be careful because you don't know what you're signing up for. And I mean, he's right. Things very much from the moment you start the DLC, the moment you start that mission, things escalate massively and really put you in like a a tough spot, and like you basically are caught up in a very difficult situation politically, as well as you're given a very, very good reason at the beginning of that DLC as to why you should be going down this route for the DLC. Like, it gives a very compelling narrative to a narrative push that pushes you into this DLC, and it's very good. The writing's fantastic in a lot of these places. Some of the dialogue can still fall, be a bit not great. Typical, typical Cyberpunk. Just kind of like, yeah, they're going like they clearly wanted a pun here, or like a motif in what they were saying about this, or like whatever. And it's like not the best, but it's still really good. I'm really enjoying it, and yeah, I think that one of the best things they did with the 2.0 update is the skill trees are completely different now. And they're better. There's honestly, you never put a skill point into a tree that is not worthwhile. And there's no, things are more methodically placed out. And also, instead of locking things behind certain skill trees, instead that's like a base thing that you just level up on its own thing that you don't have to worry about. So no longer can I have to unlock, I have to, like, if I want to craft this.
Yeah, what I remember was it was kind of like a spider web kind of thing of like, okay, you kind of have to like work your way out to the outside. Like there were like 5 main categories, and then in each of those categories it was like, okay, you've got the like immediate ones that you can dump points into, but then the outer rings you have to like make your way to.
They do something different. Instead of making it so like, oh, well, you have to have like there are certain, you start basically from the bottom and you build your way up. And so as you put more attribute points into it, it unlocks further skills in that tree. But even if you don't spend that much into it in the skills that you have available, instead of having it be like, well, you have to start here and then you can put you have to put points into here to upgrade this over here. Instead, it's like, hey, these are core skills that you can utilize, and core abilities, and then the things that branch off of them are additional bonuses. And instead of like, oh, I got to sink 3 points into this and 4 points into this, instead it's like those additional side ones are only usually 1 point, and it's just to unlock an extra thing out of it.
It's a fascinating thing, just because in my mind I'm going through like. We had the Diablo skill tree this year. We had I still need to go back and check out, but like the Horizon, the new Horizon DLC had its own like probably continuation of the existing skill tree stuff. But like, obviously you and I both talked at length about the Starfield skill tree. Obviously Baldur's Gate doesn't have skill trees so much as it has, level up specializations and whatnot. But yeah, just the like all of the different ways in which skill trees are being implemented here in 2023, and the madness that we're reaching. Even if you wanted to go back to what was it? Not Control. No, that was the Janina Gavankar was in it from the beginning of this year. Is that a fucking dragon?
Forspoken.
Yeah. We got there. And Final Fantasy 16, obviously another one. Just so many skill trees here.
So many
2023.
Skill trees. Yeah.
I wonder if somebody will do like a best and worst skill trees list at the end of the year.
Probably they should. If nobody does, maybe we should.
Yeah, there we go. We'll be a very, very niche search. Cool. Any other Cyberpunk thoughts? If like. You also like your love of Cyberpunk continued on through like Edge Runners, which I never checked out or got into.
Yeah, Edge Runners. If nobody's watched Edge Runners, if you're listening to this, watching this, like Edge Runners is one of the best like pieces of like it. Edge Runners does Cyberpunk perfectly, and I don't mean that as like the universe of Cyberpunk. I mean as a genre. Cyberpunk Edge Runners is perfected cyberpunk storytelling. And it's so good, and it's heartbreaking and wonderful in the best ways possible. People need to watch it.
So what do you think, knowing me as you do, is there a reason for me to really come back into it, or is this one that I'm like, my thoughts on the original game were it's fine? Like, is this something I should really make time for by year end, or am I probably fine?
This is gonna be weird. I'm gonna say if you haven't watched Edge Runners, if you haven't if you don't want another taste of the cyberpunk world, that CD Projekt Red has crafted, then I would say no. This is not like if you already had like, hey, I really don't like the storytelling in Cyberpunk 2077 and the way its approach to Cyberpunk was, you're not going to be a fan of this either. I know that was one complaint that people had about the vanilla game. This is not going to change that significantly. V is still V. The story, like the story is the story. Like you're not going to get that changed. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. If you have a problem with people calling each other choom, ain't gonna change it anytime soon. I know that's like some people like the vernacular or like the homogenization of cultures. That doesn't change in this. So if you have like those more intrinsic issues with cyberpunk and this is less about you and more about people listening or watching. If you still have those issues, this does not address them whatsoever. Please note that is still, that is an issue for you, this will continue to be an issue.
Yeah.
If that was not an issue for you, like that's still like a ding against the cyberpunk games for me, because the games don't acknowledge why that sort of thing happens. It's the lack of intent behind them doing something and doing something for like style purposes. Mm-hmm. Like the homogenization of like Asian and Asian cultures.
A Polish studio didn't really have like cultural insight on staff as they were making this, so there's
that, but also they don't understand like what
in the way that I think a big comparison was drawn to like Sony Bend doing Ghost of Tsushima. Like they put a lot of care and attention into the culture that they were building their game around, and this one very much was like, oh, it's very like broad strokes on a whole bunch of
it's even less about, so in a lot of cyberpunk, the like literature and stuff, the homogenization of Japanese, or sorry, not Japanese, but Asian cultures to primarily being Chinese or Japanese is very much a commentary on one, the West's interpretation of what the East is, and two, about like the kind of like imperial dominance and colonization efforts that both the Chinese, like historically speaking, Chinese and Japanese cultures have been pervasive in doing. And they're like, whether it's the dominance of, especially in our modern age, of the People's Republic of China, the CCP, and Japan as far as World War II, their colonization of Korea and Mongolia and other parts of Southeast Asia. So like there's the reason why these things are in cyberpunk as literature is meant to be as part of a greater commentary and introspective look at those different factors that I just listed off. And CD Projekt Red didn't do that when they were like, they didn't understand and didn't talk to the creator of Cyberpunk who made these decisions, and has like spoken for years about why he made the decisions when he was making Cyberpunk with the team that he made it with, about why they chose to go with this route and why they chose to do with it what they did, and kind of like the inspiration behind like the people who like the interviews that have been left over from Cyberpunk authors and stuff like that about why these things happened. Instead, it's just like, yeah, that's the way it is in Cyberpunk, and it's cool, and the aesthetic's cool, and there's no thought put into it whatsoever. The Tigers are just another gang. There's no greater commentary to it. So like if that's an issue for you, still part of the problem.
And while you went down that rabbit hole, I looked up and corrected Sucker Punch, not Sony Bend, that did Ghost of Tsushima. I was like, I was like, oh yeah, no, I knew when I said it was wrong, because I'm like, wait, no,
I didn't catch it.
Sony Bend was Days Gone.
You said Sony Bend, and then you said with Ghost of Tsushima. I was like, I don't think that they did that, but okay.
Yeah, nope, it was Sucker Punch. Anyway, yeah, okay. It's weird because like Starfield didn't grab me, and I'm just not looking at like if I'm gonna jump into any first person RPG like that, it'll be Starfield, because that's more of a holistically new thing. And also, as more and more people start to be like, okay, Starfield's been out for a while, so we're just going to start publishing like, bunch of spoilery things on the internet and stuff. Like, oh, there's a whole bunch of that game I haven't seen.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
I got to a point now that where it's like a lot of things have happened, and it's like I don't know how I feel about Starfield as a game at this point. I need to finish it, but Cyberpunk is a great palate cleanser. Because I guess the best way to put it is like the issue I'm having with Starfield is it feels very sterile in a lot of ways. And Cyberpunk is not that at all. It is very much not a sterile game. There's so much going on in that game. That being said, yeah, I'm a fan of it. If you like, if Edge Runners if anybody out there who watched Edge Runners got back into it, Phantom Liberty is another great reason to hop back into the game. If you have, for people like Trevor who haven't seen Edge Runners, I would say watch Edge Runners. And if that compels you to be like, man, I really want to like get back into this world,
in that universe.
I want to play in that universe. Then yeah, that's the perfect gateway for you to do that.
Yeah.
If you watch Edge Runners and you're like, I don't want to do that, that's cool too. But people should just watch Edge Runners. It's fantastic.
Yeah. The best thing Cyberpunk has going for it for me would be like, like Pan Am and Judy were like real fun, like side characters to like explore their stories and stuff like that. And that's pretty much all I remember about the game at this point.
Oh yeah, one of the things
like I'm sure like if we discussed like certain side quests and stuff, things would start popping back in. But yeah, like it's such a I played that game and then haven't thought about it with any kind of like reverence for the last couple of years.
Yeah. Judy is still I'm like I love Judy as a character and then as just like a friend. And then Pan Am, there's a point. So in 1.5, they started doing these things where your partner would just start sending you text conversations. And I was in the middle of doing like a mission and like I was having a text conversation with Pan Am recently. And it was just like, that's right. And like the conversation I was having with her, it's like, that's right. We're flirty. We're very fun. Like as a couple, my V and her are very flirty. They're very fun. And like, they're very like, because my V is a nomad. And so it's like Pan Am's kind of like dating somebody who's like familiar with your past and your culture, but also understands the need that you have to be out on your own and to be different at this point. And no longer consider yourself a nomad. And that's that's another thing too. Like I'm really curious how the other origins in Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, like what their interactions are, because there's some stuff that like, yeah, you get to pick some like nomad stuff and that's fun. It's fun to be like, yeah, that's right. My guy is a nomad. He did come from the backers. Like, another thing too is like they have like you're able to they unlock the outfits that you had that you kind of like don't have anymore by the time you start Cyberpunk 2077. They now let you keep those outfits that you have. So, for example, your Corpo V probably has their Corpo suit still. And then my V had his like nomad without the backers patch, because when you start your nomad, you tear off the backers patch and throw it away. And so it says like V's nomad vest sans, and then it has like in parentheses sans backers patch. And it's like, that's a great touch. It's a really good touch. I really like it. Yeah, it's great, man. I really have been enjoying it. I look forward to seeing how it finishes. For all those times you're looking at your V in third person. Yeah, there you go. Like, really, only when you're in the menus or you go to a mirror. Listen, man, they have done some fun stuff. I guess you also can see it if you're riding on a motorcycle. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's another thing, too. Is like, I'm riding motorcycles all the time. So, like, my V's decked out and, like, very regular clothing, and then just has a cowboy hat. Because that's his nomad touch is he wears a cowboy hat. Also, I was doing this one where it's like, everybody knows my V because he's like the most popular merc in Night City. I'm gonna be incognito, and I switched up my outfit a bit and then put on like a newsy cap. Okay. And so I was going around. I'm like, you're gonna be like, I'm wearing the official MCU spy gear of baseball cap and sunglasses. What's funny though is for my nomad touch though, I put on like cowboy boots. Sure. The game's fun, man. I love it. Man, it's a fun time. But yeah, if this game didn't grab you the first time around, Phantom Liberty is not going to change that. Yeah. Cool. Then let's switch over to Castlevania Nocturne. Yeah, you were watching this when I
swung through the living room at some point recently. This is how many seasons of the other Castlevania series do we get?
There's 4.
4 seasons of that, and
4
then
seasons.
this is just a new spin-off. Like, is there a reason this isn't just Castlevania season 5?
Yes, because Nocturne. It's very smart of them to do this actually, because one, the like creative team and so Castlevania seasons 1 through 4. Adi
Shankar.
Yeah, Adi Shankar is the showrunner. He's not the showrunner for Nocturne. In fact, there was some issues where Nocturne got announced from Adi's partners, and Adi was not involved in that. However, that was then rectified privately among them, and Adi Shankar is now a executive producer of the entire Nocturne series. So there's that, but also Nocturne takes place, a couple hundred years in the future, and is taking place at the tail end of the 1700s, early 1800s, because this is during the French Revolution. And so it deals with the idea of revolution and everything. But also the show technically starts at the end of the American Revolution, because that's when it shows him off as a kid. And kind of then it shoots it forward 9 years later.
And who's him? Who's
Richter? Richter Belmont is the main character this time around.
Okay.
So yeah, your Castlevania season 1 through 4 is Trevor, Cypher, and Alucard are your main characters in that, and they maintain the main charactership through the 4 seasons that you get for Castlevania.
I watched the first season, because the first season was only 4 episodes or something, wasn't it?
I think it was more than that, but it was not a lot of episodes.
It was that's right, Trevor Belmont is a thing, and it's always funny hearing my name in media. And then I remember the end of season 1 was basically when Alucard got introduced and was setting that up for the future.
Yep. So seasons 1.
That was all I've ever watched.
Oh yeah. Also, sorry, each season is only 8 episodes.
Okay.
They only do 8 episode seasons. It was the first Netflix show to only do that number of episodes on anything, instead of a full run of 12, from 10 to 12 that you normally get from another Netflix show. And I think it's really smart of them, because they don't have extra episodes that they don't need, and they're all awesome. Nocturne is so Richter Belmont is a very still has kind of that Belmont swagger, that kind of Belmont kind of smack talk, side talk type kind of atmosphere that you expect, that you kind of saw with Trevor. A lot of confidence, and he is in France, and it is kind of dealing with the fact that there is talk about, and this season does a great job of touching on the themes of, well, how do vampires survive? And they survive by incorporating themselves with the people of power. The aristocracy of Europe is a great example of that. And it kind of touches on how these institutions of power regularly have aligned themselves with vampires to essentially protect vampires from being slaughtered, but also with the rise of revolution, vampires feel their place in the natural order being threatened. And so it kind of delves a bit into that societal disruption, as well as the appearance of a vampire messiah that is prophesied to devour the sun. And basically Castlevania did in the Castlevania games, the kicker of Castlevania games is that Dracula is resurrected on a regular basis as part of his curse. He's resurrected. And so the next Belmont has to step up, make his way through Dracula's castle, and then defeat Dracula. That's the crux of majority of Castlevania games. In the Castlevania universe, that's not the case. The Castlevania universe, it's quite a bit different, and how they kind of approach that is very, very smart. In that Dracula is a singular being and is not this repetitive dies as resurrected. It's very different than that. And vampires are now built out as as an actual species, rather than Dracula just being cursed with vampirism. Night creatures and kind of the monsters of Castlevania are brought in as part of the I'm trying to remember what that PS2 game was called, where you play as a Forge Master. But basically, they do a great adaptation of the years of Castlevania that that Konami has added onto over the over several games and condensed it and remixed it to make a proper universe out of it for the animated show, and Nocturne continues that kind of legacy. Richter is awesome. I love Richter. Maria, isn't it? You played through Symphony of the Night, so you're familiar with Richter and Maria.
In so much as I played the game and it was a PlayStation 1 game, so like character wasn't necessarily the focal point of the game.
Absolutely not. No. Yeah, Richter is known for being like kung fu in the games. But yeah, no, there's a lot of like really fun stuff. Maria summons animals from the other world, which is like basically like the spiritual world. Yeah, they do a great job of it. It's really good. It's really, really good. I love the characters. I think that the only thing that I think is lacking is that some episodes are better at doing action than other episodes. And it's disappointing because the action scenes in the first 4 seasons of Castlevania are spectacular. They're absolutely like absolute gems and like incredible examples of what animation can do, 2D animation can do to create these really amazing fight scenes. And there are some of those. I think Nocturne has probably 1 or 2 of the best fights that Castlevania's ever had. That are just absolutely fantastic and like top tier. Richter does some stuff with like his abilities that are just like incredible. And it's really, really cool. They introduce also two characters who are from Haiti who have come to kind of like, they also received the prophecy about the vampire messiah, and they found out they need to search for a man named Belmont. And so they end up finding Richter, and they are this is after Haiti, of course, has had its rebellion, its slave rebellion uprising. And so like you get these like this really cool touchstone of, and the question of like, what is freedom from like the European French standard to like the actual true freedom won by the Haitian rebels. And these 2 Haitian rebels are great and wonderful characters. Edouard and I can't remember her name, but she is, oh my gosh. Annette, yeah. Annette and Edouard are awesome. Incredible additions to Castlevania. Really help flesh out Richter and Maria's characters, as Maria is a young revolutionary and she's excited, but she's also now being tempered by, oh, this is what their revolution really looks like. This is what freedom actually is. And your calls for, life, liberty, and fraternity, like, but your fraternity will never mean for us. Like, really great stuff. But they're also dealing with like vampires. And so that's not really the focus of it, but they do touch on those sorts of things. I think it's a great, it's really good. You'd expect this like, oh, if it's the French Revolution, Paris. And it's like, nope, it's taking place in the countryside of France. But they do really awesome things with it. And man, I just love it. It's really, really good. I was hoping they'd wrap it up in 8 episodes, but it's not wrapped up. We definitely need to get a season 2. So people need to go out there and watch it so we can get a season 2. Because I freaking love what we're getting out of all of this. It's really, really good.
So I looked it up. Season 1 of the original Castlevania was only 4 episodes.
Oh, it was only 4 episodes?
And then season 2 was 8, and then the last 2 seasons were 10 episodes apiece.
There you go. Okay, never mind.
So averages out to 8 episodes per season. And then 8 episodes here in Nocturne.
Well, I'm full of shit, so there we go.
Well, you talking about Nocturne, especially like the kind of French Revolution aspect of it. I think, because I don't think you ever did, I think you would really enjoy the Coffin Run season of Dimension 20. Especially because it's only, I think, 4 episodes. So it's like nice and easy and digestible. You can actually find time for it theoretically.
Dropout needs to put their app on PlayStation. So there we go. That's the problem.
Okay, because you're not always on this computer. That's yeah. I agree though. I when I do want to watch Dropout on my big screen, it is like okay, I have to bust out my Xbox for this. But hey, we can maybe maybe we can set up my Xbox, my Cyberpunk Xbox out in that room as well.
There we go.
And then you can watch.
That'll be the Dropout machine.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you'd enjoy it. They definitely have a lot of fun with like vampires and the historical ramifications of the stuff. So if you're in that vampiric mood,
I might. I need to pick up a like I just finished Nocturne. That was like my new show, and I binged the shit out of it. It was so good.
yeah,
Massive shout. Like, yeah, no. When I picked up those peppers and I got like dip, and I like busted that open, and I just ate. I had a great time watching Castlevania Nocturne this like past couple of days. Good stuff. Good
Sure.
stuff.
Very cool. All right, well then, diving into kind of the last little bit here, my Dark Urge playthrough, which I did finish.
So full spoilers at this point. If you
yes,
haven't
we'll-
played,
we'll
you haven't
dive-
played
yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3 or the Dark Urge playthrough, now's your time to hop off.
Yeah, and obviously you at least know enough of like
Yeah, I
the
got
essentials of it. So.
I got spoiled pretty hard,
Yeah.
so we're good on that.
So yeah, playing through the Dark Urge stuff. It was a lot of fun. Like I hadn't been spoiled on a ton. I'd been spoiled on like a thing that happens basically in Act 1, and even but when we recorded our spoiler cast, I had already done that, where basically, yeah, like at the end of this, like following the celebration of saving or killing the druids in the grove and stuff, you will have like a thing at your event where Elvira will show up and be like, "I want to join. I want to become an adventurer. You've talked me into it." And then basically you just murder her overnight, and you wake up and oh, there's just a body there. And you can like hide the body, and that was I mentioned I was playing this run as a Oath of Vengeance paladin, and when I in my initial reading of that scene, it was like, yeah, I'll try and hide the body, and I think I failed like the check or whatever on it. So like my allies discovered it and were like horrified and stuff like that, and I didn't like that, so I reloaded a save and then just played through it again, where I basically copped to it, but did very much like in the moment, I don't know what happened, but yeah, I'm pretty sure this was me. I wasn't in control of my faculties and stuff, and then you get like a little guy. I say that to say, playing through the rest of the game, never broke my oath. I remained
Nice.
a Oath of Vengeance paladin all the way through. It was one of those things, like as I was finishing the game, I was like, oh, that's right, I never got that like Oathbreaker scene again. Yeah, never had to deal with that. But yes, in later on, you get introduced to this little like minion guy you've got, who I feel like was probably like a variation of a kobold or something, maybe.
Oh, he's a goblin, isn't he?
I don't think he was a goblin, or at least he didn't look like the other goblins. But basically, you're like your little butler of whatever. Basically, is there and like giving you your orders and your commands, and like, okay, now kill this person, and we'll give you a reward and stuff like that. And the reward you get for like I think even for like killing Elvira in kind of the beginning is like you get a cloak that anytime you kill somebody, it turns you invisible for 2 turns. So basically, like, you kill somebody, and then you're going to get advantage on, like, your next victim. And it's not like you can just keep using it. It's not like a once per short rest or once per long rest kind of thing. It's just like...
Dang, that's a really good cloak.
Yeah. Especially if you, like... Didn't really benefit me a ton probably playing as a paladin, but if I was playing a rogue, yeah, I would have been fucking shit up. So, yeah. Anyway, eventually I kind of early on in that playthrough, I was like, all right, yes, I'm going to, embrace my dark urges. I didn't do this in that run, but I did in my first tactician run that I started up kind of in the middle of this, where I was also going to play as the dark urge. One of the first things you can do is when you go to grab Gale, you can like, one of your options is like fantasize about like ripping the arm off, and you kind of like black out. And then you come to, and there's just Gale's hand in your inventory.
What the fuck?
You basically like chopped his hand off or whatever, in your like, and that's it. No Gale.
What the fuck?
Yeah, you basically do not get Gale if you do that option, and it's like, yeah, you can do basically right at the beginning. So that was funny. Because yeah, like theoretically, you're chopping his hand off as he's trying to teleport down, falling out of the ship. So theoretically, he just lands somewhere and probably like blows up part of the the world with him.
That's crazy.
After being dead for a couple days.
That's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, did not do that in that playthrough. So in my like, you know, canon Dark Urge playthrough, I largely found myself trying to like be the paladin, trying to like overcome the urges, but occasionally like, you know, succumbing to them and being like, okay, we got to do this. Yeah, we're going to do this. And so like, you know, I'm going along, helping a lot of people out, doing a lot of good, and then like your little butler guy pops up to you one night and is like, all right, here's your next victim, and it's Isabel from Last Light. And it's like, all right, well, I guess Last Light's gonna get completely fucked again. Since that was how very much things went my first playthrough. And I had saved them in this playthrough. I had you know, fended off the would-be captors and stuff like that. But yeah, I went and just slaughtered Isabel, and then once again the thing falls and everybody dies, or a bunch of the Harpers basically turn, and it turns into a fight against the Harpers. And then afterwards, Jaheira's like, "What happened?" And I was like, "I killed her." And Jaheira's like, "I'm killing you." And so I had to put Jaheira down too.
Jesus Christ, my guy.
And then fast forward, without Jaheira, there's no way to get Minsk on your side. You can still find him and you can still face him off. And like, I tried to knock him out too, but like the tadpole basically connects between you, and he's like, "You killed Jaheira, you must die." And so you basically have to kill him too.
There you go.
So yeah, no like no Jaheira or no Minsk in that playthrough. But it was also fun still because I was still getting to do a lot of things that I hadn't gotten to do in my other Tizen playthrough yet. Like I got to find Maul in Baldur's Gate, which I hadn't done previously. And so yeah, the really cool stuff is like once you get into Act 3, once you get into like Moonrise Tower, everybody's like, "What are you doing here?" Like, welcome back. We didn't know what happened to you because because apparently that's where you were basically lobotomized, and they kind of took away your memories, and so like some of the people.
Well, they didn't.
So Orin like does the whole thing, and we'll get into that. But the first time I kind of got like an introduction to, oh, people here did something to me, is when you go down into the Illithid colony. There's an area where like there are basically like 4 generals that are in there, and like, you know, in a normal playthrough, it's just a fight. You go, you know, you fight against them. But in this one, like one of them was like, "What are you doing back here?" And basically admits to having like experimented on your brain with the Illithid, with the tadpoles and stuff like that. And so like you were a test case. Also in this run, I fully was dumping tadpoles into all of my like diving into abilities. Ultimately, I like resaved so I could go back and do a couple of different endings, but I did in all of the endings I did in this one. I became the Illithid at the end. I didn't let Orpheus do it. I basically took on.
Did you betray the Emperor or no?
Yeah, I still betrayed the Emperor.
Because fuck that guy.
And freed Orpheus. And then when Orpheus was like, "One of us still needs to become an Illithid," I was like, "I'll do it." In large part because I'm like, I'll do it, and then I'll dominate the brain for Lord Ball kind of thing. So yeah, as you get kind of like a little backstory dump. Well, also like Ketherick recognizes you when you kind of first get introduced to him in that scene, so that was pretty cool. And he like, you know, he's like one of the narration things was like, there's a knowing glance. He knows exactly who you are and what you've done. It's like, ooh. And then continuing on through there, you get a big dump continued on with like Orin basically being like, "Oh yeah, you're basically a sibling or a relative of Orin, and you were Ball's chosen, and she basically betrayed you, backstabbed you to take your place as Ball's chosen."
Yeah. So from what I was spoiled with was that you are actually if you play the Dark Urge, you're actually a direct child of Ball, made from Ball. So you don't even So you're not even a Ball spawn where Ball impregnated a female and then they gave birth to a Ball spawn.
Mhm.
You are created from Ball's blood.
Yeah. You also like in conversation with Gortash and also Orin, and I think at some point you just kind of get like a little bit of a dump of like, here's like your past, here's some memories unlocked. You basically like masterminded the Chosen Three, and you went into the Hells, and that's like another thing is like the not Devilist, whatever, the person that helps you get into House of Hope, like also recognizes you because they helped you get into Mephistopheles to get the Crown of Karsus in the first place. So like all of that happened before the game, kind of thing, and then it wasn't until like Orin betrayed you and kind of like took your place. But everybody's like, but you were much more reliable. We much prefer having you on the team because Orin is batshit.
Well, so Orin's like,
it very much ultimately, like I walked away being like, oh, this is very cool. This is like a new flavor of the like Knights of the Old Republic. You were
you're the bad guy.
You're the bad guy.
You're the big bad.
I mean, like it's much more like telegraphed that you're the bad guy, but the fact that it's like, oh, you were like the originator of, you kicked all of this into motion.
You recruited the other two, and started things off. Also, you may not have picked it up, but I found out from later because in that same thing that spoiled it for me, it's like, also this is what happened to, like, this is Orin's backstory. Orin's a child of incest. Orin is the child of her mother and her grandfather, who you fight because it's also the main bad guy of Baldur's.
Sarevok. Did you not see that in your original playthrough?
I didn't pick it up until I got spoiled. Okay. At first I was like, oh, he's like, yeah, I love. He's like, oh yeah, your granddaughter. He goes, yeah, I love my granddaughter like I love my daughter, like I've loved my daughter. And I didn't pick up on that until I read it out again, and I was like, oh, that's messed up.
I think I found that in like some journal or something in the initial playthrough anyway. In this one, that was like in my first playthrough, or in the first playthrough where I was doing the tribunal stuff. I just went down there. I was like, oh, I'm going to kill this tribunal. And then I'm going to like go and do the Balls Temple stuff. This time around, I was like, I had a very civil conversation with them because they like, he immediately recognizes me as like, the
OG chosen of Ball.
The OG chosen of Ball, like, family, and like even the narrator's like, your cousins, maybe, who knows what your actual relationship is, as you are just a direct son of Ball. But then they basically have you kill the elephant Valeria, which I did not realize until this playthrough, because they call her specifically a celestial. I was like, oh, okay, that now it makes sense that like she's the only one in this world like that, if she's got a little bit of celestial to her. But yeah, just kind of like murder her very easily because she's completely chained, like not even a fight. But they're basically like, hand me the amulet to go, do the Temple of Ball. And Sarevok is very much like, all right, and when you kill Orin, come back and tell me, like, so we can reminisce over it, basically, is kind of what it was. And I almost forgot to do that, but I went back and did it. And he's like, all right, well, I'm glad to see you won, but now I hate to do this, but I have to, I have to try and kill you to take your place. You've eliminated, the enemy of my enemy. And now I'm going to try and kill you. And I wiped the floor with him.
Sarevok is, what's interesting is it turns out that, so in a DLC or something like that in Baldur's Gate 1, I was reading up about this.
He could become basically a party member?
Yeah, you could resurrect him and recruit him. And apparently canonically, your character does do that. And so, because Jaehaera has a line where she talks about Sarevok and says, he was right, like he had a choice to do the right, like he was set on, like he set up back up on the right path, but he chose to go against it again.
Yeah, I did not do this, obviously, because Jaehaera and Minsk were not part of my party, but I have seen like, here's what happens if you bring Jaehaera and Minsk to the tribunal and like try and sacrifice them, basically. So there's the Larian played with a whole bunch of different ideas and options and stuff.
I think it's really cool. I think it's one of the things that makes Baldur's Gate 3 such a phenomenal game. I really like it. That's one of the reasons why is after you finished it, I was like, even though I already kind of know everything about it, I still really want to give it my go for it. So I started my Dark Urge playthrough.
It would be very fun, since I like lean more into the Paladin Oath of Vengeance like decisions, there were a whole bunch of like, oh, that's clearly the Dark Urge decision. I'm not going to pick that one. But like, I'm very curious what like a full like committed Dark Urge playthrough would look like, and how dark it gets, and how many things you kill.
Yeah, what's funny is I kind of I made a decision. I'm like, oh, I'm actually going to be a, like, so like I picked to be a cleric of Kelemvor, who is the true god of the dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'm gonna do this and see what happens out of it, because I'm really curious what happens if you, like, when you meet withers and also other stuff. I'm like, I really want to check this out because I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to my playthrough now of my Dark Urge playthrough, because I think it's really, like, it's just fundamentally, it's just a really, really cool concept and idea that they're playing with the Dark Urge, and it's super unique to everything, and I can't wait to kind of dig my feet into it and dig myself into it and experience it some more.
Yeah.
It's of course taking a backseat to everything else, but you know, we'll get there.
It'll still be there. Larian's just continuing to patch some stuff. Also, one of their recent patches, not a great decision on their part, because now when like a party member leaves your like when you swap out party members and stuff, all of their key items go to you in the form of like, all right, also like I've got my character basically has like 4 different key rings and 4 different alchemy pouches and 4 different backpacks now that I'm having to like, because it just dumps all of their stuff into your inventory. I'm like, all right, well shit. Now I've got to like either dump that into camp or give it to, you know, the other party member that is joining, that I'm gonna, you know, swap in and stuff. So I didn't like that choice. Like I get why they did it, because people were like, you know, misplacing key items and they didn't remember who had it and all that stuff. But it's still not fun when, okay, suddenly I'm super over encumbered because I, you know, dropped Karlak's stuff, and all of her, you know, key items that she had are now in my boat. Also in the Dark Urge, just as like, because I was largely like doing it as like I'm gonna also try and get as many of the trophies and stuff as I can, so that like my tactician run is very minimal in the things I need to still do. I hooked up with the Emperor, and that was a very funny scene. But yeah, because basically like the Emperor is so distracted that he loses the like connection keeping everybody out. So like you wake up in the morning and like a portal opens to your camp, and like you have your party member look in or disgusted and horrified.
Because you fuck a squid?
Because you fucked a squid. So yeah, I did that to get a trophy. And then I basically reloaded a save, so I didn't do it. But then also Mizora, also hooked up with her. Lae'zel, who was like my canon, like, you know, partner, paramour in this one, was not happy the next morning. So reloaded that save too. But yeah, Mizora was an interesting one, as she like takes you on like a sensual like journey through the hells and the power that you can, you know, obtain in the hells kind of thing, before just, you know, fucking in the sky with their wings wrapped around you and stuff.
That's weird.
Okay. Yeah, it was very weird. But yes, ultimately, so the Orin fight was another kind of key element of the Dark Urge playthrough. Is so I basically made the choice. I'm going to go kill Orin first, of, you know, the choice between Orin and Gortash, and so in doing that and kind of making my way down there, Orin basically like demands a one-on-one fight between you, instead of like the normal playthrough of like, okay, she's like got her cultists kind of like beefing her up and giving her, you know, a whole bunch of like invulnerability points before you have to like whittle all that away. And so like in the 1v1, it was a significantly easier fight. She definitely like rolled a higher initiative, so she got like a few attacks in on me first, but then I basically like smited the hell out of her to kill her off. And then yeah, your little minion guy basically gets like possessed by Baal and like, you know, all distorted and stuff. And Baal's like, all right, you are my son, you are my chosen, welcome. And you, at this point, you can basically like, you know, reject your father or, you know, embrace him. And I was like, well, this will be a moment where I embrace him and continue on. And then at that point, he gave me like a one time use power word kill, which I never actually ended up using.
Okay.
Because it was just there, and I just kept forgetting it in my supply. But yeah, I could have used it against like the Nether Brain and stuff when the time came. Made my way to that final fight. Had a handful of like new allies because of some people I hadn't saved in the first run, or some things I hadn't done the first time around, including like I had my owlbear companion who like suddenly got all super grown up. Wasn't able to actually do anything with them, or at least I didn't see them in my drop down. But yeah, also as I said, I became the Illithid in this time around, which like was fine / good because it so all of my Illithid powers that I'd unlocked, once you go like full Illithid, you can basically use your action and bonus action interchangeably. So my attacks and my multi-attack that I had as a paladin, I basically was getting to attack like 4. I could smite 4 things per round, basically.
Nice. As a fellow paladin or paladin main that when I ran through my first playthrough, very nice.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just cleaning, like wrecking shop. The trickiest bit of it ended up becoming, okay, I need to not like Orpheus. Is just a straight up monk, and I hadn't.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah, and he's a monk with, even in like the easy mode, with like 90 hit points or something. So like he was very quickly and very easily dying, and he's only got like flurry of blows on arm strike, and he had like a basically like a fireball attack that he could use kind of once per turn. Like,
was he Way of the Elements?
I don't know. It's the one time I've played a monk in Baldur's Gate so far. So it was like a Fist of the Phoenix, I think was the ability he had, and it basically like it had the icon of fireball and basically did the same thing as fireball, but it was like once per turn, or maybe once per fight, I don't remember. But basically used that a couple times. But yeah, just kind of like beat the hell out of a whole bunch of the baddies on my way up to the brainstem. Then on the brainstem itself, just kind of slowly made my had like my crew kind of dividing and conquering, getting people across to take out all those Illithids that are just gonna spam magic missile and take out people. Had Shadowheart basically just dumping the extra enemies onto the thing. Because I had killed the Night Song, I couldn't do any of the Loroakin stuff, and also because I killed Isabel, Roland was not there. So yeah, I could do the Loroakin stuff. I just showed up and killed Loroakin after he dismissed me for being mad at me for killing the Night Song. I was like, well, I still want your shit, so I'm gonna go ahead and kill you. I'm just gonna kill you. So I just like picked that fight with him for just 4 reasons. Also, so a thing I did this time around that, did you ever do the murder quest?
Yes, I
stopping
did.
the murder. Where did you like get him / stop him?
I stopped him at the tailor.
At the tailor. So I found out I can stop him at the winery.
Really?
Because yeah, he basically like what he starts that fight doing is he tries to dimension door away, and one of your Illithid abilities, if you like dump a bunch of points into Illithid stuff, is basically a counterspell.
So you counterspell his.
So I counterspelled his dimension door, and he was still there.
There
and
you
so
go.
I was like, all right, I'm
So you
gonna
ended it
off him there, and like his other thing, and yeah. So then I went to the tailor, and the tailor had no idea that they were ever under threat.
There you go.
So yeah, I was like, oh, that's a.
And you didn't have to like piece together by going to the other locations where he had already murdered people.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, it was a fun little discovery. Like, oh yeah, I just like, especially like having played through it already, I knew like, okay, I'm gonna face him off here. He's gonna bolt. I'm gonna kill all his little doppelganger things, and I'm gonna go kill him at the tailor thing. And so when it was like, oh no, that's still him. Like, he's still here. I just killed him, and like I killed one of them, and the body didn't change into like a morph a changeling or whatever. I was like, oh, he's just cool. The quest is done.
There you go.
I stopped the murderer. Yay. I also like actually paid a lot more attention to like who he was and who some of the other like victims and stuff you find, like the gnome you can find in like the above like like one of the inns kind of thing. Basically, like one of his victims is like, oh, that was his mom, and she was the librarian at Charesse's Caress.
Oh.
So so if you I also went into like the other rooms of Charesse's Crest, which I hadn't done before. So like one of them is Elminster's library, and that's basically where this or not gnome, she was a dwarf, but yeah, this basically like this dominatrix dwarf librarian like worked in Elminster's library and had like there's like rules that you can find in there of like, you know, always be quiet in the library unless the librarian tells you otherwise. And one of the others is like you can find is like it's like a nymphs kind of place. And she basically like like if you go in, she's, you know, mid session with somebody else, and the person she's mid session with will like has a tadpole in and turns mid thing, and you just kind of take it out, and then the nymph is like very turned on by the illithid and very much wanted to be with that illithid. So it's like, well, that's, I mean, to each your own. But like, so I had Last Light In, I destroyed after I had saved everybody from Moonrise Towers. So Wolbrin and the Iron Hand Gnomes, I couldn't even get into their hideout in Baldur's Gate because they were completely, you know, decimated. But I did do the Iron Throne this time around, and I managed to, you know, save a couple of the Gondians. Most of them died as I tried to save them just because they were getting overwhelmed by all of the guards and stuff. But I managed to save a couple of them on the way out, as well as like the blind guy who I think I probably just like snuck through and killed in my initial playthrough because I'd never encountered him before. So yeah, it was fascinating seeing some new flavors of things this time around. But ultimately, like the first kind of pass I took at the ending was embracing and taking the Netherbrain for my father, you know, ball kind of thing. And it was very much like it's pretty much the exact same ending as, you know, any other like take over the Netherbrain ending, which is to say very lackluster, very kind of like, okay, everybody gets mad at you and then immediately becomes thralls, and then there's like a brief scene of you just, you know, decimating the city as you sit atop a throne on the brain kind of thing. Whereas it, you know, the much more, this time around also like some of the other things I did in this run that I've mentioned to you, like Shadowheart became the new leader of the Temple of Shar there in Baldur's Gate. Like we took out Viconi because she basically after killing the Night Song, Lady Shar basically like makes her an official Dark Justiciar and says that the Mother Superior is corrupt, is you know, has betrayed the church. You need to go root out corruption in the church. So you still go there. I mentioned to you there's a, you know, I made a persuasion check and half of the Sharans sided with me against the Mother Superior, and then once we took out the Mother Superior, everybody else came in line. We killed she still Lady Shar still asked Shadowheart to kill her parents, which I gave her full reign of making the decision this time around. She did, and then like immediately Lady Shar took the memory of who they were away, so she just sees them as like useless sacrifices.
That's why I hate Shar, man.
Yeah,
Shar fucking sucks.
But so like directly after doing that, I went in large part because I was like, well, I want to see the other way of how this plays out. I went with Asterion, and like we still defeated Cazador, but then like I didn't let Asterion, like I talked Asterion out of completing the rite himself, so he didn't become the Ascendant this time around. So it was, like my morality in this playthrough was very, you know, mixed bag.
Everything's so skewed how you do.
Yeah. But yes, still a lot of fun. And yeah, there's clearly more care put into like the like good ending. I still sent Lae'zel off with Orpheus now to, face against Vlaakith. I didn't like try and keep her, especially because she's not going to want to be with my illithid body. She probably is disgusted by me now. So even though we had like a nice little romantic scene, Lae'zel went off to fight her war again, and this time I joined, because I think this was an option they added afterwards, like as part of patch 2. But I joined Karlach and Will in Avernus when she goes back. Basically, like the three of us. And there's like a nice little cutscene. I don't know if you would have seen this or not, but nice little cutscene where, you basically like open the portal to hell and some imps start flying out at you, and Karlach like pops open a cigar and she's like, all right, this isn't going to be fun. Especially because like in this, universe, Will doesn't have warlock powers anymore. Like he's still, he's just a guy in the hells right now. So I can't imagine he's going to do fine. My illithid ass body probably going to be okay. And then, there was also a moment, like, in the good playthrough, I betrayed Ball. I didn't, like, take over the Netherbrain for Ball. So Ball, at one point, like, there's kind of like a fade to black of, like, he's given me Orin's knife and the illusion that I'm supposed to go kill somebody. But then scene came back up, and it was, like, Karlach, her dramatic kind of ending beat. And we headed down into the hells, and I was like, oh, that's a nice, like, I like that as like, I still think Karlach's ending sucks. And like, absolutely, I wish there were a way where you could just repair her infernal engine and she doesn't need to leave. But the fact that she at least had some friends there, and like I could see them doing like a DLC of like, okay, you join Karlach in the hells to fight for her heart or something like that. That could be a potential good way to incorporate that in. But yes, those are my Dark Urge playthrough and updated like spoilery thoughts and the things I did. Trying to think if there was anything else major of note, but no, I think that's probably it. So yeah, I will be curious to see what you do in your Dark Urge playthrough, and how that all pans out. Sorry for spoiling the Gale option. All right. Well, that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk about Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty, Castlevania Nocturne, and some more Baldur's Gate 3. You follow Cameron at Rev Cabot. Anything you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, look forward. I think this will be the last week that we have anything going out from PAX West as far as content. Look forward to a written piece from me about the things that I played. But other than that, yeah.
Cool. You follow me at Trevor J. Starkey on Twitter, and you can just see more of my non-Dark Urge playthrough as we continue down in Act 2 as my life domain cleric. Being a good boy in Act 2. I think this week's episodes are more Shadowland stuff. I think we're facing off against the Thorm family in one of them. And then in Thursday's episode, we do a lot of the Halsin side quest stuff. So go check out those episodes on youtube.com/thatnerdysite. You can find all of us over at That Nerdy Site, or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun call to action stuff. As always, thank you for listening. Stay nerdy and be good to each other.